Okay, here we go again, making another Spider-Man video because let's face it, these videos are what get views. The Spectacular Spider-Man, a show I never bothered watching or acknowledged for the past 13 years until I started binging Netflix. I sat my ass on my couch and hit play on season 1. Wow. Just wow. The Spectacular Spider-Man is the perfect Spider-Man to date. You're probably wondering, if he's so perfect, why didn't you watch the show sooner? Well, if I'm gonna be honest, I never loved animated material growing up. I never liked watching it and would just watch live action stuff. But after I got into anime not too long ago, I started to have more appreciation for animated stuff because there's so much stuff you can do in these shows. The drawings you made as a kid, the ideas you had growing up, can all go into these animated cartoons. Even though I personally wasn't into animated media growing up, I still don't like the fact that it's been stigmatized because of the myth. Cartoon is only for kids. Adults who watch cartoons need to grow up. Well, these so-called cartoons can tell more of a compelling story than 60% of the live-action shows around. And if an adult watches these so-called cartoons that are made for kids, I think it goes to show that although the main demographic are kids, it can still hook adults with its great storytelling that implement lessons and teachings into one's life. So what does the Spectacular Spider-Man do right? Well, for starters, Peter Parker himself is probably the best adaptation of Peter Parker that we've seen in all of Spider-Man media. The only one for me that comes close is PS4 Peter Parker. So what makes this Peter the best Parker we've seen? Well, he's relatable. Spectacular Spider-Man chooses to skip Peter's origins and get to the part where he's been Spider-Man for a few months. Uncle Ben is mentioned a few times, which is fine because when the show is released, we've already seen Uncle Ben die in the original trilogy, so there was no need to show the death again for those who know the story. And I'm pretty sure 90% of Spidey fans have already seen Uncle Ben's death multiple times, especially with the Amazing Spider-Man showing it again. Why Peter is such a well-written character is because they've stayed faithful to the comics by adding the concept. When Peter Parker fails, it is because Spider-Man succeeds. Spider-Man saved Dr. Connors from being the Lizard, only for Peter to get fired from his job for taking pictures to gain money for his aunt. Not only that, but he also loses the trust of his friends.
Bro, you ditched the antidote effort to win a contest.
I understand you, but I can't trust you. You're fired.
Spider-Man goes off to fight the Shocker and stop him from causing any harm and mischief, only for Harry to get pissed at Peter for bailing on him when Peter promised Harry he would help him study not once, but twice.
Helping Harry must have really tuckered you out.
Oh man, Harry. I totally blew me off, Pete!
Not only do we see the concept being shown, but we also see that Peter's actions have consequences. Whenever he leaves off or abandons his friends to help civilians as Spider-Man, they get upset and pissed off at Peter for doing so, and they have a right to be from their perspective. And yes, you could say Peter working as a photographer to take pictures of Spider-Man whilst getting paid for it is good. It's actually terrible when you realize the man he's working for is slandering his name, and Peter can't get another job where he can go off and save people and get off scotch-free. This is the only place that will hire a kid his age while being Spider-Man at the same time. Speaking of Uncle Ben, although we don't see him until the 12th episode of season 1, he's mentioned multiple times throughout the show, but not just that. His life lessons are also mentioned to show what kind of hero Peter is.
With great power, there must also come great responsibility.
I'll even pay you. All you have to remember is to look the other way on occasion. On any occasion I choose.
I can't ever look the other way again.
I wish MCU Spider-Man did this because Uncle Ben is the reason why Peter is the hero he is. He taught him what it meant to use the power he had for good and not for fame or power. There's this little arc Peter has regarding the antidote from episode 3. It's used to help drive not only Spider-Man but Peter's story as well. Why I love season 1 so much is because although we get a lot of Spider-Man fighting bad guys and bad guy goes to jail, the best part about the season is not external but an internal conflict between the Spider and the Man. Is what Peter does right? Should he be Spider-Man? Should he give it all up to have a normal life and not disappoint his friends? These questions are asked and are answered perfectly. Although Peter Parker suffers consequences for not being there for his friends, Spider-Man still saves lives, the lives of his friends and family. That antidote is a way to keep asking the question, who do you want to be, Spider-Man or Peter Parker? It's already been stated many times before, but the reason why the hyphen between spider and man is so important is because it separates the man aspect from the spider. They are two different people living their own lives. Living a double life never works out well, but Peter does so because he has a gift that can also be a curse. He has a power that he must use for the good of mankind, because with great power, there will always be great responsibility. Many others, including myself, want the Spectacular Spider-Man to return because he is the definition of Spider-Man, the classic Lee and Ditko comics, which would make even more sense given the fact that many scenes and storylines are taken directly from the early years of the Amazing Spider-Man issues. Although many people want a season 3, it's been stated that it is legally impossible for the show to have a third season, which was confirmed by the showrunner Greg Weisman. But I still hope that Disney and Sony can come to an understanding and bring this gem of a show back onto Disney+, which would be fantastic. Of course, there's a 70% chance of this never happening, but if you do happen to make another animated Spider-Man series, please, for the love of God, bring back Josh Keaton as Peter Parker. Please, he is what I imagine whenever I read a Spider-Man comic. No, really, he's a really great voice actor and he deserves more credit for how he portrayed the character of Spider-Man. So, closing statements? The Spectacular Spider-Man is, in my opinion, the perfect Spider-Man. It's able to tell compelling, creative, heartwarming stories that not only cater to kids, but also to adults. I know about the Spider-Man community. It is a toxic one, trust me. You got the Raimi fanboys claiming Tobey is the best Spider-Man, then you got the Holland fangirls claiming otherwise, and then you got the Garfield fans claiming that Shazam was smarter than you think.
You guys all think you're so much better than me.
Oh, Meg, that is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
Honestly, it's heartbreaking that this is the fandom that we live in. The fandom of one of the most beloved superheroes of our time. Although we have our own opinions about what makes a great Spider-Man or what makes a great Peter Parker, I think it's important to note that every Spider-Man we've seen has traits about the character that we've known to love. So if we all just come together and as the Spidey community wrap up into one spider ball, then we can decide not who's the best Spider-Man, but why Spider-Man is the greatest hero of them all.